So now that the main area of my colored pencil candy is filled in, that would be the blue, I'm going to focus on the lettering and on the other tiny details that go along with that to really create my identifier for what my object is. So I am going to be referencing my reference image throughout this whole process. I have gotten out all of my reds, and this process is actually very similar to what we just went through. So I'm going in and I'm going to be creating my shadows in first, then adding my base color, and then adding all of my other details, and you're going to get the chance to observe that as well. So I didn't do the entire Nestle logo on there just because that is too fine of a detail for our skill level right now. In the more advanced classes I would ask for it, but anything that is just extremely tiny, the extremely tiny lettering that's found on like the Nestle or the nutritional information at the bottom, it can be ignored for this step and that would be okay. But you are still going to focus on the shading and the value of that object. Like I am creating the shading and value that's present in the Nestle logo. I'm just not focusing on the letters. So now I'm going to move on to the crunch letters. This is the main identifier of my candy. And what I'm doing now is I am just blocking out where my highlighted areas are, because I do have a little bit of a highlight in some of the letters that really identifies, and it's really important to the whole composition to make it look like a crunch candy bar. So I'm just blocking it in with my base color just to get a general idea. I'm pressing very lightly here. It's just to help me when I am adding my shading and overall value to it. I'm just adding a nice little base coat so I can get the general idea of where all of my highlights and shades are going to end up being. So now that I'm done with that, I'm going to pay a little bit of attention to the white part of my composition. I'm just going to create a slight shadow on it by filling it with gray. I'm going to be transitioning from creating a shadow by using my gray and then layering white over top of it once my letters are actually complete, just to fill the space. When I'm doing the gray, I'm going over like the little lightning bolt-esque, the crunch area of this composition, just to create a dynamic and just valued appearance, just like the we did for the rest of the wrapper, because that is still present. So now you see me, I'm going to go in with the shaded area. I used the darkest red that I have, just like we did with the shading on the wrapper itself. I'm going to go to my highlighted, my shaded areas, and I'm going to block in where all of my shadows would be. At this point, it would be really vital that you're constantly sharpening your pencil so you can achieve those tiny details, because it is possible to do that. So just constantly have a very sharp point on your pencil to make this process a little bit easier for you. So I have layered my shadow in. Now I'm going to go in with heavy pressure. I'm going to ignore my highlighted areas and I'm going to go over my shadows. This is going to be one of the last steps that we do on this project. It's just creating a nice solid structure in the letters itself just by going over that area using heavier pressure with the base color. Just like we did with the candy after we added all of our shadows, blocked in our highlights, and did that step. So I'm going in with the white to add in those final details. But one thing we want to do now is just make sure that everything is nice, neat, and complete. So I'm erasing all graphite pencil lines that I can see, making sure that every line has a nice crisp outline, making sure I have all of my highlights, shadows, all of those things that we will be assessed on, just to make sure that we have a realistic looking composition, and that is our overall goal. So now is the point to just put those final finishing touches on your project, and then we will have a beautiful result when we are finished.